Hi friends, I've just been thinking about doing a video of what I'm not going to miss when I leave Missoula. And if you've watched any of my videos, this will probably be similar or familiar, but I just feel like for those who are considering relocating to Missoula, like one of the things I've seen in like the senior newspaper, they're like, get rid of your car. If you get rid of your car, like if you're from New York or San Francisco and you are elderly or older, um, you know how to get around. But Missoula is not a pedestrian friendly place. Like I am very hardy, and it has uh, really taken its toll on me trying to cross the street here. And if you're from a major city, you won't understand because here in Missoula, you're the only one who's crossing the street every single time. And not only are you the only one crossing the street, you're having to kind of do that standoff with a car that doesn't want to stop. So cars don't necessarily use their blinkers, they don't follow traffic laws if it's not convenient for them. Like it's my theory, the only time Missoula drivers ever drove legally was just for their driving exam because the police do nothing here. So when you're a pedestrian and you're at a crosswalk and you're waiting for your light and it's your light, drivers think that they get to go first. They never been taught that pedestrians have a right of way. It's in the Montana driver's manual, but it seems like they think that it's optional. And even when you're trying to cross like a driveway, a lot of the parking here doesn't make sense. People park like if you're in a major city, people know to back in to parking, so it's easy to exit the parking. But here in Missoula, everybody parks blind and pulls out of their parking spot blind, and it's just a whole bunch of people driving blind, expecting everybody else to look out for them. And it's a problem with city planning here too, because the infrastructure is like Missoula is one of the top 10 worst designed cities in the world. So if you want to be aggravated as a driver, you'll find plenty of that here. Even though there's not as many people, there's a lot of very confusing. It could take you like a half hour to just go a few blocks because of some weird turn that they have for some reason. And if that turn had a benefit, like a safety benefit, okay, but safety is the last thing the city really cares about, in my opinion. And not only that, but so when you're a pedestrian, you might be a pedestrian due to limited finances, and so with that, that of course affects housing. And here it's a less than 1.5% vacancy rate. So another thing I won't miss is that just crazy competition for housing, and it seems like you have to know somebody who knows somebody to get housing, and the housing that you do find, it's not up to code. It's like pretty much there's usually something really wrong with it. Like the first place I lived in was filled with cigarette butts, like just it was coated with cigarettes. There was like four people smoking in there, or three people smoking. So they used the room that I moved into as a smoking room, and so I had to clean up all these cigarettes. And the next room I moved into, this lady was running an addiction center, but she was smoking crack. Like my third day there, she was smoking what smelled like crack to me, and I gave her notice and said, I'm not going to live here. And she then put all of my stuff on the porch, like 5 a.m. the next day, and then it's just like every place I've had has been like incredible difficulty, whether it's like mean girl, Lord of the Flies kind of thing, or a, a gas-fired water heater improperly installed in the space, where I had to move, and the property manager of that space also moved even before I did. So I suspect she was affected by this gas water heater that was emitting carbon monoxide. And gas water heaters do emit other gases as well. And the Northwestern Energy people, when I finally called them, they sent a fire truck who had a gurney, and they wanted to get me on the gurney, I'm sure, to make money. And it's just strange that the power company, I mean, it's like the city wants to send a fire truck every time a question is made for this kind of situation with the gas water heater. Anyway, and the equipment that the Northwest Energy guy had was this like ancient, like it was like something from the 80s. It looked to me, because there are sensors, handheld sensors that give you, like, 10 different readings that I've seen other technicians have on YouTube. And that's not what, in 2019, what the local Northwest Power Company has. It's basically, they don't have any equipment. Not only that, the guy also didn't know that the water heater has to run in order for there to be, sufficient, like, to do a full assessment of the space. So anyways, you're like, here, you're just gaslit, like other places I lived had mold in it, or people were smoking indoors, or they were smoking right under my window, or pesticides were sprayed in the building, and like it was a drafty building. And so also, like, let's say you have those kind of situations where somebody's smoking inside and the property manager won't do anything. So the so-called advocacy groups. So the advocacy groups here in Missoula are overrun. There's so many people in desperate situations, and there's not enough people to help those people. And then there's just a lot of people with problems that aren't necessarily a technical advocacy issue, but just emotional issues that people have. And they tend to, I guess, end up at advocacy groups, and where maybe they just need to be in therapy. And so I'm just looking forward to being somewhere where people are more willing to explore options and do a thorough assessment of situations, and being willing to make efforts, like, if somebody does have an emotional problem, maybe they will consider going to the therapist rather than finding something irrelevant and going to the advocacy person and talking about problems you had with your mom or something like that. So I guess it's like an emotionally immaturity that I'm talking about. And I mentioned that mean girl mentality. So Missoula is an inland northwest location, and it's not a place where you meet a lot of Filipinos or Mexicans or people of African American descent, Latino descent, Asian descent. There's a lot of Native American people, but there's this segregation between them. And I mean, I guess a lot of people just are in the reservation. And so it's basically just this really insular, like, everybody just kind of grew up here, or they were kind of like a little bit, maybe lived, in another city or whatever, but and there's just this real big pride about being like a third generation Montanan. And even like somebody I know or I met, chatted about this with, he was saying that it's kind of cliquey here, and he was like, yeah, I'm from Bozeman, and I'm an outsider here. And in my experience, I've lived a lot of different cities, and in cosmopolitan areas, you're uh, liked on the merits of who you are and how you behave, and just you know the fruits of your life. And here, it's more who are your parents, who are your grandparents, as if that's something that's really special. Um, I mean, I think it's interesting, when somebody has like, they're Hungarian or Canadian or something like that, or from Minnesota. You can kind of get a sense of an interesting cultural something or other. But here, like, people will say, like, in their business, on their business website, people are very proud to say, I'm a third generation Montanan, and they can bank on it here. So I won't be missing that for sure. There's in the wintertime, since we're in a valley, there's what's called inversions, and so there'll be in the winter. So these inversions, stagnant air settles in Missoula in the wintertime, and it also, when there's forest fires, it'll stay in the valley in the summertime, and that's really horrible. Another thing that's horrible is in the wintertime there'll be like rain, it'll be warm, and then it'll turn suddenly cold, and so then sidewalks will get all icy, and so will the streets, and it's just really difficult to walk on a sidewalk, especially then people won't. A lot of people don't use their front door. They don't walk on their own sidewalks, and the city does not do anything about not shoveling the snow. So sometimes you're walking through a foot of snow for blocks, and that's not necessarily the horriblest thing. I mean, it becomes it's like you're walking through molasses. But then when that melts and becomes ice, it's just very treacherous trying to walk on a sidewalk, and then when you're also trying to cross the street. And people in Missoula, they're very impatient, and they like to bully you with their car. They like to herd you off the street. They think, if they just cut around you, like an inch around you, that's somehow okay, in front of you, behind. I won't miss that. Another thing I won't miss about Missoula is the doctors that are like, Lyme doesn't happen in Missoula. The interesting thing is Dr. Bergdorfy, the guy who Borrelia is named after, the Lyme, the kind of the main Lyme bacteria. He was in Hamilton worked in Hamilton at the Rocky Mountain laboratory in Hamilton for like 40 years. So he's the guy. He's like this Swiss doctor, pathologist, I think. And it's my understanding he released hard-shelled ticks in Montana, and he was involved in some like secret science stuff. So Lyme was probably introduced by Dr. Bergdorfy, and I think like there's even a documentary where he kind of begins to confess about that. And it's just like an amazing thing how doctors here are like, oh, there's no Lyme. It's impossible that there's Lyme here. It's like, oh, no birds, and no deer, no dogs, and no people could possibly bring Lyme into the border, because that bacteria knows that once you enter the border of Montana, you can't be here. Like the border, it stops the bacteria from coming in. That's pretty much what it seems like the doctor's understanding of that is. When you're wearing a backpack, heavy winter boots, and a bulky coat, that pretty much shocks people. Women are shocked when another woman is wearing that kind of gear, because it's a car culture here where people don't wear coats, much less own a coat. I am constantly seeing children without coats in like 20-degree weather here, and their parents not wearing a coat. I mean, and because everybody's in a car. And so there's adequate parking, and so they just have a 5-minute walk here and there. And, I guess putting on a coat is, people are so distracted with, I guess, their phones and, um, you know, being super parents and having super kids that it's just, coat is not even an issue. And I find it just okay. I won't be missing that because I see like people and I see their kids and I'm like, anyway, people who are well past adulthood, drinking and drugging and otherwise misbehaving like teenagers. Um, that's like it's like I'm embarrassed. Like I've had roommates who are in their late 30s, like I was at the time, and I was like 39, and I had a roommate who was like 40, and another roommate, and they were just like, I mean, when they were sober, they were reasonably mature or whatever, but they were like doing like hard drugs and having like bad situations happen, and police called, um and I like in Oregon I saw like some friends, smart people kind of get into a little bit of something, and that was, I mean, they were just arguing a little bit, and I was like really shocked at that. And I'm from New York City. Like in New York City, like people are just, you really have to pay attention and take responsibility because you just know things can get out of hand. And here it's like people in Montana, they expect things to get out of hand. They expect to go to prison. They expect somebody to go to prison. They I was at a group event, and this one guy was from California, and he was like, I almost went to jail, and at this event, like a majority of the people had some encounter with the law, and some stuff. And it's just like it seems like Missoula, like another thing I won't miss about Missoula is that there's like millionaires who are buying these $300,000 condos. Like Missoula keeps on building these condos that are $300,000. There's no affordable housing, and so you have millionaires here, and it's basically this town is a little tourist town for the millionaires. Like Missoula is like a little boutique town. It's like a gated community, and the gate is the money. Like and so you have all these millionaires that live here, and you have like this tiny amount of and you have like this middle class people who work for the government, who work for the universities or the university, and some other things, and then you have like this super stressed working class, like poverty level working class, who are paying like astronomical amounts for rent, and it's for a slum, and the city does not care about safe housing for the tenants. So it's just like it's a very pretty place, but I won't be missing that. I won't be missing this kind of despicable mentality towards people's housing needs. That this is like really supposed to be just another, it's like a B rate, C rate Aspen for rich people. And the thing is, like these millionaires, they buy this space, but Montana's like covered in snow and ice for like 8 months out of the year. So all these condos are vacant because the millionaires aren't going to be here. And so there's all this vacant space for people who aren't really invested here. And it seems like the city is all about property taxes. So the city's happy as long as the millionaires are paying the exorbitant property taxes, and that's another thing I won't miss. Like last year, the city tripled its property taxes for land homeowners. So, I mean, what's that going to do for rents? The rents that are already crazy going to go up. So I won't be missing that out. I won't miss the defeatism, the helplessness that I see in my peers who are on fixed incomes and have like health issues. People are just really defeated, helpless, hopeless. There's not a whole lot of innovation, inspiration, pull themselves up by their bootstraps kind of a thing. Every once in a while, you see it. I've lived in New York, San Francisco, Portland, and other cities. I've gone to school in Massachusetts, and pretty much everybody had an inspiration. I mean, I have had homeless friends, or friends who are addicted to crack or something like that, and they had projects. They were doing art. They were, just very creative, and they were, even though they had some really bad self-destructive qualities or habits. They had also a balance of really good skills and abilities. And here, it's the mentality here, the level of being just like innovation. It's very it's like it's drugged up. It's like, I mean, I wonder if something's in the water or something. I mean, I know there's no fluoride in the water, and I do wonder if it is the air stagnation zone, if that's like affecting people here. Because it seems like I've seen more like disabled people, developmentally disabled, and I attribute it that it's a party town. People think they have a right to drink alcohol, just because, and I mean, of course, everybody has a right to drink alcohol, but if your kid's going to become disabled, I think that's, you really should care, and that goes for the father as well. Like, your genetics are going to contribute to how your child is going to turn out. So you really should, take care of your body so your child will inherit good genes. And I know that's offensive to people. If you want to, I guarantee you're going to be offended if you listen to anything I say. Another thing I won't miss is the complacency of the otherwise good people that fail to do nothing here. There's, people here, it's weird, like people will, talk, pay lip service to whatever the current crisis of the day is in the liberal world, and but it doesn't seem like anybody does anything, and it seems like people just want you to be quiet. Like they want they want you to complain about global warming. They want you to complain about Trump. They want you to talk about how you're a vegan and how you're supporting some, like, the next liberal poster child of the month and the next liberal president. That's what people want. They want those that virtue signaling to be reinforced, and I can't give them that because I think that's it's an incomplete and dangerous way of viewing the world, because I feel like there's a lot more going on. And this probably is not even a complete list, but I did want to do that for anybody who's thinking of moving here. It's a very nice place to visit. I would visit Misoula, summertime, springtime, summertime, autumn. Winter can be a little rough just simply because the roads aren't maintained and it's just dangerous. But if you're like elderly, do not move to Montana. If you're older, if you're disabled, the streets are not. Another thing I won't miss is some streets don't have lighting, so like tonight I could hardly see the sidewalk. And so, if there's not a moon out, you can't see where you're going on the street if you're, in a residential area. So it's not really accessible. And also, like, a lot of the trees block the road signs, so you can't really even see the signs if there is even a sign. Another thing is, so a lot of people here are like, oh well, you have free bus service, as if that's as if that's the same as bus service in a city, in a metropolitan city. I would rather have to pay for the bus so that I would actually get regular service, like every 15 minutes, every 20 minutes, and routes that actually go in a sensible way. Like in Missoula, you have to kind of go over here to over here to over here to get over here. And the thing is, like, so it's like this really, like, a lot of bus routes do not seem to make sense. And for some reason, buses, in the wintertime, you close all the winters because everybody's cold. And all the exhaust is, it seems to concentrate inside the bus. I don't know why they make buses like that, but it makes riding the bus in the wintertime very uncomfortable because I have chemical sensitivity and I just can't inhale exhaust for 45 minutes and function after that. And so, and I won't miss, like, the people here who is like self-satisfied smugly, like, are like, well, yeah, we have free bus service, you should be so happy getting to ride that free bus service. And it's like, some bus stops aren't even labeled. The bus stops that are labeled don't even have shelters. I think I've seen 2 bus shelters here. This is a serious four-weather season type of city. So you're getting rained on, you're getting hail. It's like it's just a brutal situation. And then also, because not a lot of people ride the bus drivers don't even know you're there. So you have to be on the alert and, like, flag bus drivers down because they're in the zone. Like, these bus drivers are there just to make their time. They are not interested in picking up people. Another thing I won't miss about Missoula is that bus drivers won't kneel the bus. I have seen elderly people, like fragile, frail, elderly people with their shopping cart, being expected to lift themselves up and their shopping cart a foot off the ground, because the bus just is really high off the ground. It's like a foot and a half, maybe. I don't know. It's like super high. And I was really sick, and I could hardly pull myself up onto the bus. And I've seen this happen time and time again with disabled people, blind person with their dog. The bus driver won't kneel the bus, and I've even called the manager of the mountain line about this, and he was like, "You expect us to kneel the bus every single time somebody gets on?" And I'm like, "No, just have your drivers use their discretion. If somebody is elderly, kneel the bus. Like, there's not a whole lot of elderly people. It's probably going to be 3 times, But I mean, just that cold-hearted indifference of these bus drivers who have no conscience. Like, and you know what? In New York, San Francisco, and Portland, they kneel the bus. They see what you do is you press that button. Yeah, I know it's really hard. Like, it's really hard for the Missoula driver to press that kneeling bus and then press it again. Maybe it's the 2019. Maybe it's like we're in the end times and it's revelations and people's hearts are cold. But that's like one of the really painful things I've seen here is like, it's just like this inconsideration to elderly people and to disabled people. By bus drivers, and I know bus drivers have a horrible job. They have to deal with really annoying people and annoying situations, and I'm sure there's just things I cannot imagine what bus drivers have to put up. But It's probably not as bad as if you were working in San Francisco, New York, or Portland. And I just think, like, I mean, it's shameful. It's like these bus drivers are shameless, and that manager I talked to of the bus drivers was shameless. And I guess that's my issue with Missoula. It is kind of shameless. Like there's a handful of really nice people, good people, decent people that I've met here, but for the most part, it's this really self-absorbed, uh, coddled. Like there's so much wealth here because everybody's just from here, so they inherit their parents or their families' stuff, and nobody's had to really lose anything. If they haven't gambled it all away or smoked it all away or whatever. And so people really expect everything. They expect to have everything of the good life. And in major cities, like if you're in New York City, like you could have 5 kids and live in a 2-bedroom apartment, and you just know how to be like modest, and not everybody is going to everything, doing soccer and theater and whatever, rifle shooting practice or something like that. And I'm not trying to judge all that, but it is a different kind of mentality. Like people have a strong sense of entitlement of just expecting a lot of money and expecting a lot of just this super good life, and it's sort of like them like just driving, they own the road somehow. That road is theirs, and they don't expect anybody else to be on the road. I don't know why I thought of that, but I guess like I find people in Missoula pretty spoiled, and there's not it's not a I mean, I guess the word sensible um, is the word that comes to mind. And I've got to say, like, since I've been here, especially the last 2 years, I would say, I kind of feel like maybe 3 years, like, I kind of lost my sensibility too. Like, and maybe it is that air stagnation zone. So if you have health issues, if you're elderly, if you've got vision issues, if you're a pedestrian, Missoula is not a place to be, especially if you're not a third generation Montanan. Don't move to Missoula. They don't want you. They like it if you visit. They want you to spend as much money as you possibly can here, and spend more money, and make sure they get all the money they can from you. That's what they want. And make them look good, so more people will come here and spend money. That's what they would like. I would say, yeah. So I won't miss that, and I'm sure there's going to be unpleasant things that I will, or pleasant things that I will miss. Like it's very scenic. I really love the smell of the cottonwood trees. That's one of the things that really brought me here, is that the fragrance of the cottonwood trees and the river, the beauty of the river. I really like that, and also seeing like the osprey or deer or the blue heron, the ducks, geese flying, and seeing marmots, red-winged blackbirds, and I think that's the I've probably seen like some big trout on the Clark Fork. I've seen beaver as well, and I saw a ferret. So the wildlife, getting to see wildlife as somebody who's from Manhattan, that was like so fun. And but the just it got more depressing and horrible and insulting and degrading and demeaning and dehumanizing the past few years, especially trying to get like advocacy. It really was dehumanizing because you realize like how little you matter, and how useless advocacy groups are. And it's like you know you're supposed to just somehow like make them a lot of money. Like if it's an advocacy group, a nonprofit group, they just want you to fit into whatever thing that they make money off of, even if it's a nonprofit somehow. And there's just always some kind of like scam going on, some type of unethical thing going on. Um, and I don't know, maybe again, it's a sign of the times. Maybe this has nothing to do with Missoula, but this is just my kind of one. I'm wondering, if that is. Uh, I'm wondering, and maybe in time I'll maybe revise my perspective. But so it's been scenic, and um, I'm really glad. I'm really eager to leave, and I hope the cars just pay attention to their driving, and I hope they'll just be safe, and I hope I pray for the drivers here, pray for the reckless drivers to find Lord Jesus Christ, and I just pray for everybody here to find Lord Jesus Christ, because Missoula really needs to find Jesus. I and I'm grateful, like all of what I described. It's just a thumbnail sketch of a very difficult, very unpleasant time that I've had here for years, um, and the pain and misery and distress that Missoula has caused helped me find Jesus. And I mean that seems to be how God works. Is you're put under great horribleness, so you're driven to uh, ask for His mercy and ask for His help. So, so I've found Jesus, and everything makes more sense now. Um, so I hope people in Missoula do as well, and I hope they find the grace that makes them better people, better people, of course, to each other, of course, to other third generation Montanans, most important people. Go Grizz! But I hope it also makes them better people to non third generation, non Grizz football fans. Thanks for watching.